to go. Ready to go here. Things are happening out there. Big doings are going on, ladies and gentlemen. Plus, it's my most favorite day of the week. And that is, that's redundant. You don't need to say my most favorite. It's my favorite day of the week, Friday, for a whole bunch of reasons. Rush Limbaugh and the EIB Network. Maha Rushy, ready for 3 hours of broadcast excellence. And did Jesse Helms tell him what for, or did he not? It is amazing.
Live from New York, it's Open Line Friday.
And you know what that means? It means that you are allowed a little bit more, I don't want to use the word freedom. Why don't I use the word freedom? Because it's the right word. You are allowed a little bit more freedom than otherwise exists Monday through Friday to choose the subjects that are discussed on the program. By the way, we have the environmentalist wacko picks coming up today, week 3 of the National Football League season. And I'll tell you what, we got a column today in the Wall Street Journal by my old buddy Camille Paglia that I could have written about football. It's about how women can learn so much about the business world and about real life if they would simply study and learn football. It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm going to read you parts of it. A lot of other news out there, too. We may have a link to the Chi-Coms, and the campaign finance toenail fungus hearings that occurred yesterday have been going on. They were suspended yesterday. Senator Thompson saying that they had some private business to engage in, and it turned out that the FBI and the CIA and Janet Reno showed up to brief the committee on this possible link. We will have details coming up. But first off today, Jesse Helms, senator of or chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, who you know is at odds with everybody, it seems, over his his refusal to even have a hearing on the president's nomination of William Weld to be ambassador to Mexico. We've had Senator Lugar, who is, if the truth be known, envious that he's not chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I don't know if that plays a role in his public behavior here, but it's clear that Lugar would rather be chairman. It's the seniority system is why he's not. He's been on a public tirade against Jesse Helms' refusal to conduct a hearing even for Weld. And, of course, the press has been accusing Jesse Helms of being unconstitutional and dictatorial. And Helms hasn't said anything throughout all that until today. And, of course, Weld himself has been part of the battle. And the liberals and the Democrats have loved this, and the people have been saying to the president, hey, this is a great move because you got the Republicans fighting with one another. It's great to have mainstream Republicans at war with Jesse Helms, great to have Jesse Helms center stage as a representative to the people of what the modern Republican Party is. It couldn't be any better for us politically. And Jesse Helms been sitting around minding his own business. Today, because somebody invoked a rule to have a meeting, not a hearing, Helms prepared for it. And my friends, if there's such a thing as a grand slam with every paragraph, it was today by Jesse Helms. It was so good that CNN couldn't stick with it. They had to pause every half minute or minute to analyze what Helms was saying. It was he's in the midst of prepared remarks, and CNN backs out every minute or so for analysis, ongoing, on-the-spot analysis from Bob Franken and Mary Tillotson. And we're not leaving the hearings. We just want to tell you what you're hearing. And then they went back to the hearings for more, and they come, I can't believe. And in the middle of his remarks, Mary Tillotson of CNN is speculating on how damaging this can be to the Republican chances of holding on to the House of Representatives in next year's elections. It was fabulous because everybody thought that Jesse Helms was in uncharted territory. Everybody assumed he was unconstitutional. Everybody assumed that Senator Helms was acting dictatorial, anti-democratic. So Senator Helms brought out some facts. He had as he went to great pains to point out, the nonpartisan Congressional Research Service looked some things up for him. And let me just briefly cover them. We are in the process, even as we speak, of putting together a sample of audio clips from Senator Helms' meeting this morning. Let you hear for yourself what happened. We have one ready to go now. I'll get to it in just a second. It seems that in the recent past, there have been 154 presidential nominees, not just ambassadorial nominees, but judicial nominees, 154 who did not get a hearing. Helms pointed out that there's nothing in the Constitution that says nominees are entitled to a hearing. It's totally up to the prerogative of the chairman. And he pointed out that of these 154 nominees who did not get a hearing, 44 of them were judicial nominees, and their nominations fell silent without a hearing 44 times while Senator Joseph Biden was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Biden was forced to sit there and nod his head while Helms was pointing this out. Helms then named a name. Judge Terry Boyle from North Carolina was nominated by President Bush to sit on the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in October of 1991. His nomination was not acted on for a full year, and in October of 1992, it was withdrawn. It was also reminded, or Helms also reminded, that Senator Lugar himself, as a committee chairman, had denied a hearing to the wife of Senator Phil Graham, Wendy Graham, on the basis that she wasn't qualified to be on the Economic Commission to which she had been nominated. Weld is now responding, and of course, I am unable to hear what Weld is saying, although he is smiling, but I can't hear what he's saying. I do have my closed captioning going. There were a number of occasions where Senator Paul Welfare of Minnesota began whining and moaning as a typical liberal does. What about fairness? When you let Senator Lugar respond? No, I'm not going to. This is not a debate. We're not having a debate here. Said he was just, my friends, Jesse Helms was entirely in control, totally in control. He was confident. He was confident of his position, and he's sick and tired of taking all this BS, which is rooted in untruths and falsehoods, and today was his chance to respond, and he did. Now, here is Senator Helms describing the situation involving the Judge Terry Boyle in North Carolina.
Senator Biden will no doubt remember one of those 44 nominees. U.S. District Judge Terry Boyle of North Carolina, who was nominated by President Bush to serve on the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals. Judge Boyle was nominated on October 22nd, 1991, and his nomination was held in the committee files for almost a year until it was returned to the president on October the 8th, 1992. Now, despite my repeated appeals that a hearing be held on Judge Boyle's nomination, Judge Boyle never got one. Now, in saying this, I cast no aspersions on Senator Biden. He was within his rights as chairman. He was within his rights as chairman, and I want you to take note of that.
That's Senator Jesse Helms from about a half hour ago during the meeting. As we speak now, Biden and Weld and Lugar are all speaking at a press conference. And I've been able to gather that Biden says, look, the only guy that can solve this. Now, by the way, there is a procedure for appeal here. And Helms pointed out that in none of these 154 occasions that he cited did anybody exercise the right to appeal because nobody wanted to, by implication, challenge the authority of any committee chairman. And one of the old boy behavioral patterns, no doubt, because anything can come back to haunt you and you don't burn bridges. So goes a traditional philosophy of life. But there is a procedure for appealing this sort of ruling from a chairman. And Biden is addressing it, and they said the only guy that can do this is Lott, is what I've been able to pick up here by my closed captioning. So we're checking into that as the program unfolds. We'll take a break here, folks. Our phone number again is 800-282-2882. A lot of news out there today, and phone calls are roaring in about all this. So you take care, be patient, be cool. We'll be right back here with Maha Rushy.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
We're back on the Excellence in Broadcasting Network and Open Line Friday. Rush Limbaugh, your guiding light through times of trouble, confusion, murkiness, despair, tumult, chaos, and self-absorbed feelings, conspiracies. All right, my friends, I want to play for you another example of the Senator of North Carolina, Jesse Helms, chairing the Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting today, in which he explained that on August 1st, he attempted to reach out and touch the president with a compromise offer. Here's how that went.
On August the 1st, the first day of the congressional recess, I sent to the president that 4-page letter that I've alluded to. I wrote it at my home in Raleigh, and in that letter, I explained my objections to Mr. Weld for the Mexico Post, and I made an expanded offer to the President of the United States. That offer was that I would immediately convene hearings on the Weld nomination to any other country in the world that the President chose, provided it was one where drug trafficking is not the principal U.S. foreign policy interest. Now, what Mr. Weld appears to be threatening is that unless his nomination to Mexico is moved, he will begin a war within the Republican Party. Let him try. I have been tempted to say, but haven't, that I, Mr. Weld, do not yield to ideological extortion.
Now, there you have a man, ladies and gentlemen, standing firm on his principles, standing firm on his beliefs, and not bucking and falling prey to any pressure. And there's been a lot. There's been the news media. He even chastised the news media. He said, now you guys in the news media, and I love you all. And everybody laughed. It would be wise if you stuck to the facts. I have given you the facts today. I think they're a powerful set of facts. 154 nominations, presidential nominations of one kind or another, where the nominees got no hearing whatsoever. I'm sure that surprises many of you who thought all along that this was unprecedented, that this was the first time something like this had happened. How dictatorial is Senator Helms? He is over the hill. He's losing his mind. We've got to get rid of that old fogey. And what he's just said is, look, I am not, you want a war with me in the Republican Party? You go right ahead, Senator Weld. And Senator Weld does, because he went out after this hearing, and Weld allowed himself to be surrounded by Dianne Feinstein, Paul Welfare, Joe Biden, and Senator Lugar was in there as well. So it's clear that Weld or some of these people apparently do want an ideological war, and Helms says, I'm not going to yield to any of this ideological extortion, which means I'm not changing my mind, guys, just to please you. I'm not going to change the way I think things ought to be done here just to make you people happy. Now, what's going to happen, I think, over the weekend is you're going to see the Sunday shows devoted to this, because now, as opposed to the campaign finance hearings, this is drama with personalities involved. This is not nameless faces, nameless people, names you can't understand or pronounce from places and parts unknown. I mean, this is right here in our own backyard. It's an ideological war. It is drama. The press will be consumed with it, and I believe that Jesse Helms will be even more hated and reviled than he is now, for the precise reason that he's stuck to his guns. You just, not with liberals. You don't do that. You, at some point, you've got to grow. And Jesse Helms hasn't grown at all. You know, there's also another precedent for someone nominated by a president for a post not getting a hearing. And guess, it has happened before to President Clinton. This is not his first nominee who hasn't gotten a hearing. One of his previous nominees goes by the name of Lani Guinier. Early on in the Clinton administration, she was nominated by the president himself to head up the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. He took so much flack for her nomination, so much criticism. Well, I hadn't read some of that stuff she wrote lately. I bet I went back, I read some of that stuff last night. She is gone. I didn't know about it until I heard about it in the press. He withdrew her nomination. He withdrew it before she had a chance to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's done it himself. And now let's take a look at that. Here is the girl, Lani Guinier, and everybody says, you can't do that. She's not qualified. She's this or that. And Clinton goes, all right. She's gone. But now he's standing behind Richard Weld. So apparently he's not willing to stand behind the babes as much as the babes think he will. So you can have all sorts of fun with this. But, I mean, those of you out there, you've been demanding principle. You've been demanding people who kowtow to it and stick with it and don't cave into it. I mean, that's exactly what you got today from Senator Helms. Here's Rick in Cincinnati. Rick, glad you called. Welcome to the EIB Network.
Mega dittos, Maharashi.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, it's a great day to be a Republican. I told Mr. Stern earlier, it's about time somebody started acting like they were in a majority. I think that Mr. Helms finally showed.
That's a good point. That is an excellent point.
Well, I hope that every senator and House member that's a Republican got to see that, because Mr. Helms just showed them all how it's supposed to be done.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're right. There's no question about it. Because of the facts, folks. Forget his, I admire even his attitude. I mean, there were people said, like Wellstone sitting there, Mr. Chairman, this is unfair. I just want fairness. Consider Lugar respond. No, we're not having a debate here. Now, you wanted to tell him, shut up, you little fly. Shut up. He didn't tell him that, but you could just see that he wasn't taking anything from anybody, folks. Nobody. So, and Biden's sitting there nodding his head about all these 44 nominations, but guess who's the ringleader at the post-hearing press conference? Biden. Now, there's a little hypocrisy, and here's a guy who refuses to conduct hearings on 44 nominees that come before his committee. He's out there saying, this is unfair, this is not right, and the only way we can get this done, the only way we can overcome this is to put pressure on Trent Lott. And that's what this press conference is all about. We're here to put pressure. You people in news media, everybody's going to be talking about this. Everybody is. We're going to pressure Lott, to pressure Helms to get this done. It's the only way we can do it. So he's out there drumming up support for this. And Lugar opined that, I think it was Lugar, maybe it was Biden, but it was one of the two opined that once you, the public, get a load of how unfair this all is, that you will demand, for fairness reasons alone, that Weld get his day. That's what the people who conduct the post-hearing press conference hope is your reaction. Here's Paul in Watervliet, New York. You're next on the EIB Network.
Rush, megadittos from someone who used to convey everything by feelings instead of logic. Thank you for teaching me a lot.
Welcome home, sir.
I've been waiting to hear that for many years. I tell you, it's just amazing to watch the Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing room packed while you can barely make out anybody in the Senate hearings, the Thompson Committee hearings. You can't find anybody in there when that's so much more important. What I see happening here is the liberals and the Democrats posturing for the next election, saying that, they're going to be coming out saying that, well, look at us. We're bipartisan. We're trying to work with, Republicans and work with people that are nominated. And same with Clinton, too, even though he's not up for re-election. They're trying to all posture in that way to say that they're the ones that are being the bipartisan and making the bipartisan effort. And I'd have to tell you, as far as the dictatorship, I'll leave that in the name up to the media, because a dictatorship is somebody who's going to spew out the information, be it wrong or right, for the consumption of the people. And now that Jesse Helms has actually set the record straight and actually given people facts, it's up to them to decide who the dictator is, and I call the media the dictator because they will print the information, be it wrong or right, for the consumption of the people who are, in most cases, just sheepish enough to go along with it because they read it in the paper or heard it on TV.
Well, that is the power of the press, the power of the media in terms of it's not the individuals involved, but simply the process. But I tell you, the reason why nobody's watching campaign hearings and why everybody's fired up about this is easy to explain. You may not like it, but it's easy to explain. I will endeavor to do so in a moment. One more little audio clip. We're working on others. I want to give you one more audio clip from Jesse Helms' Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting today. This is where the senator explains how many nominations never got any action, never got a hearing. And I think it runs about a half minute. Here it is.
I have already emphasized my great respect for Senator Biden. So I hope he will understand that it is with some reluctance that I must point out that during his tenure as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, CRS has documented 44 separate judicial nominees whose nominations were sent to the Senate by the President of the United States, not one of whom was given a hearing by the Judiciary Committee.
Now, why didn't you hear about any of these? Why didn't we hear about any of these? Well, because nobody decided to make a political issue out of it. Helms addressed that, too. He said the reason is that any time you challenge the authority of any particular committee chairman, you by implication are challenging the authority of all. And that just isn't done. The committee chairmen have authority. Now, in this case, this is so abhorrent. Standing on principle is so abhorrent to and so unfamiliar to so many people that Helms was under assault from the get-go. Plus, he's despised and hated anyway by the press. I mean, the liberal elite and the Hollywood left have done their best to get him defeated in each of his last two elections against Harvey Gantt. And you think of him what you will. When I say standing on principle, some of you, I'm sure, are going to think, oh, no, democracy, everybody should get their day. We should have hearings. What are we afraid of? And I know a lot of people think that. But when I'm talking about principle and so forth, Helms believes that Weld is the wrong guy for Mexico because it involves drug trafficking as the number one foreign policy question with that country. And because of the things that Helms believes, he just doesn't think he'd be right. Take him anywhere. Maybe he wants to be ambassador to India, wants to be ambassador. Doesn't matter. We'll do hearings tomorrow, but not Mexico. He firmly believes it. And today, his press conference was all about citing the precedent that exists to refuse a hearing and to show that it had been done before. Now, this old argument that the president has a right to have his people in place, that is, I'll tell you where that has most recently been enunciated by Orrin Hatch, who used to be a ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, back when he was a member of the majority during the Bush administration. And during that period of time, of course, is when the Clarence Thomas fiasco occurred. And the Democrats did everything they could, short of blow up the country, to keep Clarence Thomas off the Supreme Court. And they had done that with Judge Bork as well. And Hatch's comment, hey, I believe that the president, he won the election. The president should get what he wants. I am convinced that was an Orrin Hatch attempt at appealing to the soccer mom faction of that day, to try to say, we Republicans are not going to sit here and act closed-minded and partisan like this. We're not going to be like you've seen the Democrats in recent years with these nominations. We're bigger than that. That's what Orrin Hatch meant. I think that this business of the president can have who he wants. That's never been the case. Look at all the people that have been denied. And this is the point of the Helms press conference. Like it or not, 154 times in recent years that nominees have not gotten hearings. This is not the first time by any stretch of the imagination. Here's Tom in Lexington, Virginia. Hello.
Hi, Rush. Greetings from Lexington, Virginia, home of that wonderful Virginia Military Institute.
Thank you for your call, sir.
Rush, I think this whole thing on the hearing is about the Rockefeller Republicans trying to take the party back from the Reaganites, from those who are the working people who were Democrats like myself for years, who 20 years ago became Republicans because we wanted to hear the truth. And I think all this is just it's a sad day, Rush, when, as a conservative, my hero is Jimmy Traffic in Youngstown, Ohio. And I think this is the whole problem.
Well, okay, I got to understand why you like Traffic Hunt, but what's that got to do with, not what does that have to do with, then tell me what you think of the Helms meeting today.
Well, I think he's right. But you have.
Well, it says up there that on my subject line on my computer, it says that your call is going to say that Helms is not a victory for the Republicans.
Well, it's not a victory for the Republicans because there's this inner fighting in the Republican Party. I mean,
wait a second. If you love Trafficant, suppose Trafficant had the same views as Helms, and suppose Trafficant chaired the same committee that Helms chairs, and suppose Trafficant thought that Weld wasn't right for Mexico, and suppose Trafficant had done exactly what Helms did today, would you say, uh-oh, Republicans are fighting with each other, or would you just said, that Trafficant, you can count on him?
I would say that Trafficant, you can count on him. He's a conservative.
But you don't think Helms is?
Yes, oh yes. I'm all for Jesse Helms. I think Jesse's right. I think we need more senile people in Congress, if that's the way they think. You know, they accuse him of being senile.
He's not senile.
Oh, I know he's not. I know he's not.
Now, but you think, nevertheless, because of what he did, that this is going to tear the Republican Party apart?
No, I don't think what Jesse Helms has done. I think it's what these people behind the scenes, like Senator Lugar, are doing. Jesse Helms has
how many votes when Senator Lugar ran for president some years ago? What percentage of the primary vote did he get?
Very little.
That's right. What percentage of the primary vote do you think Weld would get if he ran?
Very little.
Well, what are you worried about? The Rockefeller wing of the party. These are the people that are out there, the blue bloods playing polo and at the country clubs and all that. And they you're right, but it's ever since Reagan. They hated Reagan. They've despised all this since Reagan. And they think that they're the ones the only ones who can run the party. They're the only ones who understand what republicanism is all about. And they, for their longest, but those people are, and they are the pro-choice wing of the party, and they can't even win that one within the party. So this is not going to tear the Republican Party apart. I think it's just going to identify who's a Republican and who isn't.
Well, I hope you're right, Rush, and usually you are.
But I love these fights. This is we don't want a bunch of robotic people who fall in line. We want people who represent who stand for what they say they stand for, who represent what they say they represent. At least that way you know. How come it is in Republican Party politics, we talk about the Republican blitzkrieg in taking over, and the takeover of Congress in '94. That isn't what happened. They won. And we hear similar words or terms used to describe the Christian coalition and the pro-life wing of the Republican Party. They took over that convention. Did you see that? And we're stuck with the specter of the lonely, what's her name, Ann Stone out there, acting like she represents the vast majority of Republicans on the pro-life side. We're losing because of pro-life. No, we're not. We're losing because people like you, Ann, don't know what you think about anything else. You want to sit there and be moderate. You want to get along with the people you live with in Washington. You want to go to the cocktail parties with your friends in the media and the liberals and the Democrats and everybody else and be one big happy family and then put on a show of being opposed to them when it comes time to run for election. But other than that, let's not make enemies out of these people. Blah, 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 blah. Well, the reason the pro-lifers dominate the convention is because they understand politics. They went to the grassroots of every precinct, not just state, and they won the elections for party official. They ran it. I mean, they did it. You talk about democracy. That's why the Republican conventions are dominated by those people. They went out and won, and so I'm sure that a guy like Weld will look at the media's definition of the current makeup of the Republican Party. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to think that Pat Buchanan is in the same party. I'm embarrassed to think that Newt Gingrich is in the same party. I'm embarrassed. And so they go out and do things like this to try to take over the Republic. I actually think what I saw today with this press conference, you people will see this too when you get home tonight, turn on television. You will see William Weld surrounded by Democratic senators plus Lugar. Now that's the picture, and that's what's going to happen here. If this guy's political career is to advance, it's going to have to be as a Democrat. He's not going to take over the Republican Party. He's not going to succeed in turning what is a conservative party, on balance, into a moderate bunch of. Moderates don't dominate anybody. Moderates don't go out there and put together big agendas and win elections. Name an agenda. Name for me the agenda that moderates have. Moderates go case by case, issue by issue, and say, what do I do? Well, okay, in terms of having a set of core beliefs, a moderate can't possibly, by definition. Is that going to anger some of you? But that's what I think. And I'm not going to yield to ideological extortion either. I'm not going to change what I think just to satisfy whoever it is that thinks I ought to do this or that. And I relate and identify with Helms on that count. And I look, you can think what you want about Senator Helms, and I'm even you conservatives. I imagine some of you are pretty embarrassed. Well, I don't know that. I'm just going to guess, because some of you, come on, we don't need to be doing this. We're falling apart everywhere. Why do we do? But at the same time, some of you are demanding that all these representatives stand on principle, and even if it means going down in flames, you want them to stand on principle. Well, here's a guy who's doing it. This is what it looks like if you really want to know. It's what it looks like. This is a good time for you to determine if that's indeed what you want. But and don't forget, too, the president himself wilted under pressure from who knows who. Lonnie Guinier didn't even get her hearing that he nominated her for. He pulled her off before she had a chance to get up to the committee. Committee was back. Come on, let us conduct hearing. Republicans wanted their shot. And Clinton said no, and that was that. Quick break. We'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
Your fully licensed and top-rated radio talk show host, Rush Limbaugh, the most listened to radio talk show in America. Back to the Senator Helms meeting today. This is the section of the hearings where he described Senator Lugar, who failed previously to do what he's doing now with Weld. Apparently, Wendy Graham was nominated to head the Commodities Futures Exchange Commission, and Lugar, somebody was not. She was nominated. She didn't get her hearing, and Weld or Lugar interceded on her behalf, trying to get that hearing as well as she didn't get it. And what he's trying to point out here is that this is not new ground for Lugar. That Lugar has insinuated his views on previous chairman as well. Here's how that goes.
But there's one more interesting angle to this. Margot McCall was nominated to be a member of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. At the same time, a lady named Wendy Graham, who just happens to be the wife of Phil Graham, United States Senator, and a great one. Wendy Graham was nominated at the same time by President Bush to serve as chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Senator Lugar also fought unsuccessfully to block Wendy Graham's nomination. But Margot McLeod, or McCall, was not so lucky.
So he fired both barrels today. Now, let me advance one more idea about the politics of all this. Because the press conference which followed this meeting, again featuring the ringleader Joe Biden, Biden made it clear that the only guy now that can do anything about this is Trent Lott. And Biden, of course, thinks that the president should be involved in applying pressure to Trent Lott to get Jesse Helms to relent and have a hearing for Weld. Now, the politics of that are this. There is something that the president wants real bad. He wants it real, real bad. And that is fast-track authority on the next round of trade negotiations, the expansion of NAFTA. And guess where he has to get it? He has to get it from Congress. Congress has to agree. Congress has to vote, in essence, themselves out of the negotiations and say, Mr. President, it's all yours. Go right ahead. Fast track basically means that there are no debates on the individual points, that the whole picture is negotiated by the White House, and it's done. Congress cannot object to any individual part of the treaty that is negotiated. It's either a total up or down thing. Otherwise, the theory is it wouldn't get done. It'll be in hearings for 3 years. Clinton really wants that. He wants it for a number of reasons, and not the least of which is to help secure Al Gore's nomination for the 2000 presidential run. So is it likely that Clinton will make a big show out of pressuring Lott? Will Clinton run the risk of angering Lott on this? Remember, Congress is very parochial. You stay out of our business, White House, executive branch. It's always been that way. And the executive branch, same way. You stay out of my business, you people on Capitol Hill. Is the Weld nomination something that Clinton wants to go to the mat for and perhaps run the risk of losing his odds on fast-track authority being granted? I think not. I rather think that what Clinton will do is attempt to keep this alive in other ways so as to keep the Republicans battling with one another. What do you mean, how does Clinton save face? Save face with what? With the nomination? He doesn't care about the nomination. You think Bill Clinton cares who the ambassador to Mexico is? You think there's some special qualification? I mean, Weld doesn't even speak Spanish. Do you think that Weld was chosen of all the potential candidates because he's the best American possible to be ambassador down there? And nothing hinges on this. This is practically meaningless. Now, that's the whole political point. What do you mean save face? Was he worried about saving face with Lonnie Guinier? What do you mean save face? He's not running for re-election again. Clinton save face? It's not a factor in the equation as far as I can tell. I don't think so at all. I think it's what Clinton wants to do is somehow find a way to keep this alive without provoking Lott. And I don't even think he'll provoke Helms. I think he wants Weld doing that. I think he wants Weld and Lugar and these other guys on television all day, every day, ripping this thing apart. So in that sense, I don't think he's going to pull the nomination, but I wouldn't expect him to go even privately, much less publicly, leaning on Lott. Unless there's only one way I could be wrong, and that is if Clinton's sitting up there thinking that the Republicans are totally spineless and will do anything to avoid appearing at war with Clinton, because if he thinks that any time they're at war with me, they lose in the American people's minds, then he might do it. But Lott so far has shown no inclination whatsoever to intercede on behalf of Weld. We'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the EIB Network.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. All of you on the hold, I want you to be patient, as I am making this pledge to you as your fully trained and qualified broadcast host, I am going to get to your call, all of you on hold. Now, I want to remind you of one more thing. Many of you, I'm sure, have forgotten this, if you knew it at all. Bill Weld was a member of the Reagan administration. He headed the criminal division of the Justice Department. He worked for Ed Meese when Meese was Attorney General. Bill Weld resigned with a whole lot of fanfare, called a big press conference. He claimed that Ed Meese was unethical. He couldn't be part of an unethical administration with Meese in it. It was nothing more than a strategic move on Weld's part to gain liberal kudos from the liberal wing of the Massachusetts press. But here's the point, and I remember this. If Weld, with great fanfare, can resign the Reagan administration because of the lack of ethics in his mind of Ed Meese, why does he want to become a prominent member of perhaps the most corrupt administration in American history? This is something that, of course, he doesn't. That's not, there's something else at work here, other than maybe he's just bored, as people say. He's got his own means, and he's tired of being governor, wants to move on to something else, who knows. But there's a little hypocrisy here in Weld himself. He's not angelic. That's all for now. Tune in Monday for more broadcast excellence with me, Rush Limbaugh.